What is blended learning? Well, blended learning can be defined as a formal education program in which a student learns, at least in part, through online delivery of content, coupled with other instructional methods, with some element of student control over time, place, path or pace. This definition works, but for STS-Nuclear, blended learning is much more than just this definition. To fully understand our approach, we need to focus on the learner and then on the teacher and see how the two can interact. It is widely recognised that there are 7 general learning styles. These are visual, auditory, verbal, physical or kinesthetic, logical, and then 2 others, social and solitary. These styles imply that different learners find it easier to accept and understand information when it is presented to them in ways that more closely align with their learning style. So a visual learner would prefer information to be presented in a visual way, with pictures, graphs, and demonstrations, where an auditory learner would prefer that information to be presented in sound, or maybe music or discussion, which could also suit a verbal learner. It is worth noting that while we all have preferred learning styles, we are able to learn by other methods. It will just take a greater amount of effort. So, if we have the different styles of the learner, then what methods are available to the teacher to present to these methods? The examples of teaching methods are numerous, ranging from e-learning to traditional chalk and talk, and from one-to-one mentoring and coaching through small and large group work, incorporating peer-to-peer teaching and team discussions, to practical laboratory experiments and real-time simulation. Our aim at STS-Nuclear is to match these teaching methods, as closely as is possible, with the multiple learning styles to ensure that every student has the best opportunity possible to receive and understand the information that is offered to them. Inspection of a teaching method allows us to give some examples. For instance, e-learning can target visual learners with images, pictures and animations, auditory and verbal learners with audio pieces and visual typography, kinesthetic learners with accompanying workbooks and assignments, and this type of teaching method can be carried out in an individual or in a group setting. And this is just one teaching method when well considered and well executed. If we take the example of a tutor-led workshop and see how this may fit in with multiple teaching methods and learning styles. So, the preparatory material could be delivered using e-learning, allowing the learner to prepare at their own pace. This may then be followed with a session of chalk and talk with a tutor, as the ideas are expanded on further and questions are posed to the learners. Once the workshop begins, there could be options for the class to break into small groups to research topics and share peer-to-peer experience and knowledge, before forming back into the larger group and presenting and defending their findings in discussion with the other groups and the tutor. This approach utilises at least half a dozen different teaching methods. That's half a dozen different ways of passing information to the learner. But how does this map across to that learner? The number of teaching methods mentioned allow multiple learning styles to be utilised. The e-learning example has been previously discussed, and so I won't mention that again. But the workshop also allows verbal learners to discuss their findings and auditory learners to hear that discussion. Kinesthetic learners can benefit from practically researching and preparing the group's findings. And all of this combines elements of social learning. All considered, a well-run, tutor-led workshop can comfortably hit 5 or 6, or even all of the learning styles, making the information much more accessible for the wide range of learners that would form any class. This, in turn, leads to a greater understanding and ultimately success within the chosen discipline. And this leads to a second point. How do we define success and what is important within a given area? This falls to the understanding, setting and prioritisation of the key learning objectives. STS-Nuclear could aim to communicate every key learning objective using at least 3 teaching methods and targeting at least 3 learning styles, and this may seem like a noble approach. But key to this would be to understand that each aspect of the course is not equally weighted and the required level of learning is not the same. For instance, if I wish to take a class to a laboratory in Rome for a week to conduct experiments in support of a level 1 learning objective, define the subatomic particles that form an atom, this would justifiably be considered overkill. By the same token, if I were to offer to teach a level 4 learning objective, say, analyse operator response to an abnormal plant mode, and to do so only with chalk and talk lesson on a whiteboard, it could well be considered that I'd missed the importance of this and was not fully utilising all of the appropriate teaching methods. Within STS-Nuclear, we pride ourselves on this understanding, bringing together former plant operators and academic experts to ensure that we fully understand the customer's learning requirements and that we can develop and deliver highly technical content to meet the needs of the customer and the learners. So how might a week at an STS-Nuclear course look? For an intensive course of study, we would look to offer a mixed timetable that focused on a true blended learning approach, allowing several periods of individual study each day where the learner can focus on learning the material at their own pace. But each individual learner's session is split with a session that requires interaction with staff or peers. The week could also feature numerous elements such as group projects and group workshops, where learners can mix within different groups to ensure a good spread of experience and knowledge on a peer-to-peer level. There would be classroom lessons which may be in support of workshops or laboratory sessions, and a troubleshooting open floor session where the students can choose the topics for discussion and consolidation relevant to where they feel they need the most assistance. Laboratory and simulator sessions could be interspersed where required, and also each student would be allotted time each day to reflect on their learning, to consider what has happened and what they have achieved, and whether they could have achieved more, or what they would do differently if that learning opportunity rose again. This can be conducted as an individual or as a discussion among small groups and the cohort as a whole, ensuring that students understand what they are learning, why they are learning it, and how they can best maximise the value of their time on the course. This short section only gives a broad outline of STS-Nuclear's approach to blended learning, drawing out our philosophy on learning styles, teaching methods, learning objectives, and the levels that apply to them. And finally, a brief overview of the elements that may come together to form each week of a fully blended course.